What was the worst decision you saw someone else make? I know a guy who was supposedly recruited to be part of Vancouver Symphony Orchestra not even out of high school. Saw his girlfriend dance with another guy at graduation and in a fit of drunken jealousy punched a brick wall and shattered a dozen bones in his hand. Never played an instrument again. A girl I dated for a few years broke up with me for a heroin addict dealer. I told her this is going to ruin your life. It's been almost 10 years and I think she's finally staying clean. But she lost a decent job and had some run-ins with cops. Plus got pregnant between stints in rehab. So, my fiance registered Sinus cousin was donating $50 to TON. TON is a fundraiser held by Penn State where they dance for hours and hours to raise money for causes like a running marathon, but dancing. He was donating to a friend and did it coins. Hot glue to a cardboard backing, making a big Penn State logo. Cool looking. Well, his girlfriend decided it was so cool looking it should be framed. She went to a frame shop and got a custom frame that ended costing over $600. For something that was to be taken apart, the dabs were small, and he engineered it to come back apart easily shortly after it was given. He was pissed, and they couldn't even return it because it was a custom frame. So they ended up keeping it as to not totally waste $600, and he wrote a check for $50 for the donation. Now they have a silly framed $650 Penn State logo on their wall, and neither of them even went to Penn State. That guy's girlfriend is a f***ing idiot. My cousin dropped a full ride baseball scholarship at a college in a town he grew up wanting to move to for a girl he started dating his senior year of high school. She was 2 years younger than him. He went to a state school instead that's 40 minutes from his hometown. She cheated on him and they broke up not long after school started. Ouch. I witnessed my friend kick a skunk in order to get it away from him. Bad decision. Some idiot I used to know was convinced pepper in the eye wasn't nearly as painful as people made it sound. Our English teacher told us about this incident that happened a few years ago. He went to this beach with his family, but it was high tide, the warning flags were up and everything, so they couldn't swim. This lady comes along and lets her 3 kids go into the water. He tries to stop them and tell her it was high tide, but she wouldn't listen and the kids go into the water anyway. Of course, the worst comes to pass and the kids are drowning. My English teacher and a few other men swim out and save the kids while fighting against the tide. When all the kids were saved, he gave the woman a proper scolding. He is a teacher after all. He says it still terrifies him to think what would have happened if the tide had been any stronger. While over at his house, one of my best friends decided on a whim to snort cayenne pepper for science. It went about as well as you could expect. Idiot friend badly shocked himself trying to light a cigarette with his Taser electric arc stun gun. When I was about 7 years old, I was in the car with my parents, going across the bridge from Niagara Falls, Ontario to Niagara Falls. Why? The deadly Niagara River is right below. There was quite a wait due to traffic, so we were pretty much stopped. A bunch of teenagers were goofing around, hopping out of their car and play fighting, etc. One guy hopped up on the railing of the bridge and did a handstand. It was terrifying. His friends yelled at him and he hopped down. Then he did it again and fell over the railing to his death. Friends sold their beautiful home for a huge loss because they were concerned about the way things were going with the local real estate market. Later that year, gentrification took root and their house was worth almost 3 times what they sold it for. I had a friend ask another friend to shoot him with a blow dart. First the guy shot him in the leg, but my friend thought that was too easy. He was an overly confident Marine Reserve, so he asked him to shoot him in the side. The guy did and it punctured his lung, though he wouldn't admit it. Then, trying to play it cool, he decided to go home, when really he was going to the hospital. We all followed him to his car trying to convince him to let one of us drive or call an ambulance. But he just kept saying nothing was wrong. He collapsed right as he unlocked his car and we had to call 911. He's fine. Aside from his injured ego and dim wits. A girl married her boyfriend the summer after junior year of high school. Then they dropped out. And then split up before they were even married a year. I don't always judge people for marrying young. But this was clearly a series of bad decisions. A friend signed with a professional sports organization at 18 for $1.2 million and spent 95% of it on junk without put any of it into an investment fund. My 20 years old minimum wage heart is crying. I slowed down from 100 kph to about 80 kph on a highway because I saw a large kangaroo at the side of the road up ahead. Young guy behind revved his car at me and drove really close and held his horn down. Obviously annoyed. I had gently put the brakes on. So couldn't understand what his problem was. He just kept revving too. I put the brakes on again when I saw the roo start taking off in front of me. It would have safely passed in front of me until the idiot behind floored it around my car and absolutely decapitated the poor animal right in front of me. It went up and over his bonnet. Rolled down the side of the car finishing under the back wheel. I swear I saw it bend in half the wrong way. He pulled over further ahead and I drove past him with tears in my eyes. I'm shocked. He had a really nice, expensive looking car and the roo was large. So I really hope it did some exceptional damage to that loser's car. Lest its death be a total waste. My friend on why he proposed to his controlling, angry girlfriend of 5 miserable years. I did it so she would stop asking. Wedding is in 3 months. Dude. You need to save this guy's life. Do what you can to break him out of it. He needs to understand that this girl will make the rest of his life miserable. Outside a bar. The bouncers offer to pay for a cab. Guy says no. Calls his girlfriend, she won't pick him up because of the baby. He says he won't drive. Walks off. Gets in his car. Does 80 miles per hour down a side road and gets busted for DUI. Offered a free cab ride home. Effed up his life. Could have killed someone. Guy, let's call him Sean, was young. Never been with a woman before. Starts seeing this married girl that was separated from her husband. He gets laid and falls in love. A few months later her and her husband decide to try to work it out for their kids. Sean can't stop thinking about her so he figures out a way to get her away from her husband. He walks up to their living room window and shoots the husband in the head with a .22 rifle. While he's playing with his 4-year-old daughter. A girl I know spent $50,000 on a wedding for a marriage that lasted 6 months. I was on tour when we played Newcastle in England. Decently big gig for some smaller timers like us. When discussing with the hosts, they mentioned that we should go and give the opening act a confidence boost as it was their first ever gig. Went down and met them. Talked to them and they seemed absolutely confident as hell. Soon discovered they were an experimental band and that none of the guys actually played the instruments. That's right. They had decided to put a band together of non-musicians. Not rehearse and play on the night thinking it would make them seem creative and ambitious. It was atrocious and cringy. That's what it was. 2 of my friends were at a party drinking. Friend 1 shows off his gun to friend 2. Tells him it's not loaded. Points the gun at his head and pulls the trigger. Forget the years of jail time. He has to live with killing his friend for the rest of his life. Saw a rookie drinker at a house party mix Snapple with a half a glass of Everclear thinking Everclear was a simple alcohol mixer. 20 minutes later. Projectile vomit everywhere. But in a redeeming moment. A few hours later. He drunkenly got up from his sleep and decided to haphazardly mop the kitchen and went back to sleep. That's a green flag of a good friend party guest. A guy I knew in the military made enough money during a deployment to pay off his student debt. Bought a car instead. Second-hand story, but here we go. Colleague of a friend came into work excited about having bought a new house. Thought she'd got a great deal because they took like 50k off the original price. Why? Because they found out the place was completely infested with termites. Really, all she bought was a very expensive piece of land. Edit for clarity. No. She wasn't deceived or misled by the previous owner. She knowingly bought Termite City. In high school, I watched a guy who didn't smoke light a cigarette and announced to a crowd of kids that he was going to smoke for 1 month and stop. Just to show smokers how easy it was to quit. That was like 17 years ago. He still smokes. Once in middle school, while we were changing after gym class, this one kid decided to steal my Axe body spray out of my locker. He was completely naked and ran away when I confronted him. As he got to the other side of the locker bay, he hopped up on the bench and, as if to taunt me, sprayed the Axe body spray directly into the tip of his penis. Definitely did not seem pleasant. He's just sharpening his axe. Watched someone quit their 20 per hour job, blow through 25k of savings, get ripped off trying to restore a Honda from 80s, that's where the 25k went, lose all their friends, default on all credit cards, lose their luxury condo, move in with their grandpa, get kicked out by their grandpa, move in with their dad and stepmom, get new job for minimum wage at their dad's work. Why did all these things happen, you might ask? Severe fear of growing up. Not speculation, that's literally his reasoning. Edit. A guy with his wife and kid was speeding on a moped and blew through a red light at a busy intersection at least 10 seconds after it was red. The guy, the driver, was looking at his phone. They were smashed by a large pickup truck. Everyone on the bike killed. Watched the whole thing play out and thought to myself, that idiot is on his phone and he's gonna. Oh shit. Then they got hit. Unfortunately, I've seen too many similar accidents. Saw a guy eat roadkill as part of a dare. Hospitalized for 3 weeks for infection that led to vomiting, that maxillin wouldn't work and that led to a hernia which led to sepsis. Was 2 grades under this girl that was graduating in less than a month. She was brilliant and had amazing grades, but she dropped out to become a manager at a Hungry Jack's, Australia. She ended up getting demoted after a few months because they transferred a new manager in that had 20 years experience. She could have easily baked the cake and ate it as well, but to this day, I can't understand why she would just drop out like that. Her parents were pissed. Edit. This was high school. Sorry, I didn't realize I didn't add that in. Betting $5,000 on 17 on roulette. Dude. That's monumentally stupid. You always bet on 23. My dad watched his best friend for 35 years drink himself into an alcoholic, essentially ruining his own life. They were drinking buddies for a long time, but my dad began to suspect he had a problem and tried shake him out of it and quit drinking himself to avoid encouraging him to drink. His best friend's eventual DUIs and increasingly protective wife led to a strain on his relationship with my dad and anyone else he knew from high school and college. Now his wife won't let anybody talk to him ever again. My dad misses him greatly and won't stop telling stories about the antics they used to get up to when they were kids. Always addressing him as uncle. In the last few years we used to see each other. They started out in the sandbox at age 2 and eventually broke loose in their 30s. Edit. Friend of ours spent you a cute 23,000 on a wedding. Dad bought a house he completely didn't want but his wife wanted. So his wife is the bad decision. A woman married my ex-husband after she witnessed him snapping my wrist like a twig. Carrying on an affair with him for a year of our marriage. And knowing full well he was an addict. It was like watching a train wreck. I had to keep repeating to myself that it wasn't my problem. If it helps. Some advice one of my friends gave me was this. Don't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Saw a friend of mine drop out of high school. Is unemployed now. Probably regrets it. I have a friend like that. Dropped out with a month to go to be a big man. Have a friend who got her boyfriend's initials tattooed on her wrist when they'd been dating for 2 months. Fast forward 2-ish years. He's dropped out of college. Broke a door down to get to her during a fight. Has basically one friend, who's a kleptomaniac who stole her medicine out of the capsules and tried to steal her car. She left him and got the tattoo removed. Not show up to a court exam so he could go to the next year. There were just 2 exams for that course. Both were 50% for the total grade. He got a 10/10 on the last one. All he had to do was show up and get a 1. To get a passing grade of 5. Instead he didn't show up, which is a 0. This resulted in him not passing that one course, and we had to pass all courses to go to the next year. So he got stuck for a year. I even considered just grabbing an exam paper, writing his name on top of it and handing it in so the teacher at least thought he was there. But I didn't want to risk it over someone else's stupid mistake. Saw a guy attempt to funnel a bottle of about 45% vodka. He actually got down a fadinkum amount of it but then vomited and went to hospital. Kid from my high school graduated and got a full ride to my state's college and left 2 months in because they wouldn't let him play QB when they wanted him to be T. At work I got called to a lady that had overdosed on heroin. Get there. She's semi-conscious on the couch. Also drug addicted boyfriend tells us she's 2 months pregnant when we were asking the usual questions. Just reminded me of Trainspotting. An old co-worker at a fast food place I used to work wanted time off. Worked to the bone and knew he would never get it. He decided the best way was to go for some compulsory sick leave. Dude bloody stuck his hand in the fryer. Only problem was when he claimed it as an accident they reviewed the camera footage, which clearly shows it was 100% intentional. Lost his job and had a decent medical bill. Marry a drug dealer. They are both in jail now. Probably going to prison. I'm all about recreational drug use and the right to choose what you do with your own life. But Jesus, really? How did she think this would end? They thought a husband and wife couldn't be tried for the same crime. At trivia night at a TGI Fridays, one of the questions was, which band originally wrote and sang While My Guitar Gently Weeps? I said it was the Beatles, but a friend said that it was Prince. Cue a bunch of people saying, wait, you know, I think you're right. Yeah. He had that awesome live solo a few years ago. Insisted it was the Beatles. So we put it to a vote. I lost the vote. And we lost that point. FCKU Gavin. FCKU team. Edit. You can't Google or use smartphones in trivia. OFCK all of them. It was a George Harrison song. Which is why Prince did that solo at his memorial. Hospice nurse here. We had a medical power of attorney that was a flight attendant. The patient was 103 years old and having one of the worst deaths I have seen. Moaning. Yelling. Thrashing in the bed. We begged for the use of the comfort meds. He said no. She can't talk, she's dying, so there's no way she's in pain. She can't say she's in pain, so she's not. He never even saw her. 2 different MDs called in, this arsehole knew better than them. The best we could do was have the pharmacist compound Motrin into a rectal suppository, which is a horrible thing as it doesn't absorb well that way. Better than nothing. To this day I hate that person. There was no dignity in that death. FCK that dude. My friend met a girl at a wedding on the last night of a short overseas trip and decided to cancel his flight home the next day and stay in a foreign country with no job, no place to live, barely any money and a tourist visa, just to try and get with her. This was 5 years ago and they're engaged now. So I guess the decision was in a way the best decision he ever made. Still seemed really short-sighted at the time though. While I was studying at a Starbucks I couldn't help but overhear a middle-aged woman talking a 20-something woman into what was definitely a pyramid scheme. She was selling different makeup packages that the younger woman could sell to her friends. Had gold and premium packages too. My cousin's mother decided to leave her husband. For whatever reason. and start dating someone else before her and her husband had legally divorced. Sometime later there was a confrontation between the husband and the boyfriend, which ended in the boyfriend shooting her husband in the head. Needless to say, he was dead before the police arrived. The husband was probably one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. I never did hear why they decided to separate in the first place.